Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options and Play video update. Last week of May, but actually for this point in the quarter, pretty busy with a lot of tech, specifically like software reports due to read out, and we we've been taking it easier in terms of like trading earnings like into the actual print, but that doesn't mean that there aren't actually like good trades, like into earnings like ahead of it, or right after earnings. So it's like even though aren't really taking as much risk like into the actual report itself. I feel like there's trades like ahead of time and there's trades after. Plus, like on the day of, I mean, things are flying around, so there is a lot of opportunities, even if you don't really want to take the risk for the actual earnings report. Okay. Before the open on Monday, nothing of interest. After the close on Monday, API, which is pricing about 8 points. Those are monthly options. This was a really hot momentum play in January as it rode the Clubhouse app strength. But, I mean, obviously came way, way, way off that high. And I feel like it could be due for a move. Um, options, though, are expensive because you got to pay for like all of like June expiration. So I don't know if it's like a pattern I have a ton of confidence in, so I'll probably leave it alone. But definitely seems like something that's set up to move, especially based off of how far it's dropped and where it's sitting right now. Right. So about $1.65 is what they're looking for. It had a crazy week this week, and it's not really an earnings story right now. So I mean, I was focused on it this week for day trades, and I think I'm probably just going to keep looking at it that way until it can kind of stabilize and turn into an earnings story. I mean, it seems more like a day trading name for me at least. Before they open on Tuesday, AutoZone, which I mean, stock doesn't do any volume. The options are really thin; they don't do much volume too, so you can't trade it very easily. Plus, it hasn't really been a great earnings play recently anyway, so I just don't think I'm gonna do anything with it. It could maybe move like an O'Reilly or an AAP, but I feel like there's better opportunities out there. Cracker Barrel too. I haven't traded in a long time. Restaurant stocks didn't move particularly great this quarter, so similar to AutoZone. I think there's just better opportunities elsewhere next week. After the close on Tuesday, Intuit. So kind of like now we start getting into some of like the software names. 17 points is what they're looking for here, and there's not too many software stocks that are at 52-week highs. So this is clearly a leader. It's acted great recently, but earnings wise, it's not. It hasn't been as big of a mover in a while. Let me put it that way. I do think it's something to keep on the radar post earnings, but I doubt I'm gonna do a trade on it for the actual report, just because pricing's a little high. Stock has had a big run, and it doesn't have a great history of moving lately. Zscaler, so about 16 and a half points is what they're looking for here. Recent quarters have been good, but it's a high price growth tech name, software name too. I mean, and those stocks have been kind of struggling to get traction. I imagine the numbers are solid, but the option pricing is also pretty high too. And I don't know. I guess I just have a hard time with like having the confidence in the setup when these types of stocks just aren't getting rewarded right now. It has been a name I've traded a bunch in the past. I mean, just lately, it does tend to move well when it starts to wake up. So if I don't take options into earnings, it's probably be something I keep watching right after earnings to see if it does give like a nice like 2 to 3 day trade right after. Nordstrom. So about 375 is what they're looking for. Good retail numbers. Had very mixed reactions this past week. But Kohl's, Macy's, they both traded red on their reports, and that might be more of a tell for Nordstrom. It's definitely a little bit of a different setup now too, because it had like another false breakouts back into the 30s. It's below some resistance. Um, but maybe if they really surprise in a big way, it could lead to like a snapback breakout. But this might be more of like a game time decision for me. For the open on Wednesday, Dix. So about 7.5 points is what they're looking for. Very strong, trendy name, and those don't usually make for good earnings plays, just because sentiment very one-sided. Stock has performed great. Seems like expectations are high. So typically, this type of pattern is one where I would expect lower volatility. So I mean, if you wanted to approach it one way, it'd be like either with like flies or longer dated spreads. LI, so Chinese EV name, priced in about 2 points. These names, so like this and Neo and XPEV, they're trying to stabilize, but they're in the early process of potentially rebounding. LI and actually Neo and XPEV too, they give monthly deliveries, so to me, it kind of removes some of the volatility around earnings. But I mean, I definitely think that this could set the tone for like that group. And depending on what they say, I mean, like all three of them could move actually. So those two don't report next week, so I might look at options on either of those as kind of like a sympathy play. XPEV is probably more so trades with LI. After the close on Wednesday, so more software names. Nutanix priced in about 375. This is kind of an interesting setup. Stock tends to move around earnings. Valuation fundamentally is not crazy high. It seems like it could have a path for like maybe like 5 points either way. So may set up well for a volatility strategy. Nvidia. So they're looking for 35 points. Now, this was maybe slightly more interesting prior to Friday, but now they just announced a 4-for-1 stock split, and the stock just pops. So it does look a little bit more extended right now. What's interesting is that they also guided at their investor day back in April too. So to me, that this seems more like a swing trade candidate because like when companies guide pre-guide, I tend to expect less volatility around earnings, and now B, because it's had such a big move off of that stock split, I feel like it kind of maybe removes a little bit of the upside potential. But post earnings, if the option pricing comes down and the stock can hold around 600, I mean that to me seems like it might be an interesting swing trade setup. So that's probably how I view it. But depending on how like Monday and Tuesday or even like Wednesday goes, I might have something on here. But I mean right now if it keeps like powering higher or even just like the option pricing doesn't really move, I might just leave it alone. Okta, so about 15.5 points is what they're looking for. I'm not sure how much of a swing you're going to see on this because it had a pretty wild ride after its analyst day. So it was another one that had analyst day in April. Huge rally, huge reversal. So um, I, I feel like the numbers should be good, but
Test
I
radio,
don't
test
know.
radio.
The stock to me just doesn't seem like a great setup. So I might just sit this one out. Snowflake. So about 23 points is what they're pricing in. It was a hot IPO last year. 2021 has been totally different. Coming off a quarter where they guided lower, stock has bounced pretty big recently too. So I feel like another weak guide is not going to be treated well, not in this tape. And considering it's the most expensive software stock out there, I'm definitely more cautious going into earnings on this one. Workday, so about 14.5 points is what they're looking for here. It hasn't been in play as much as other software stocks, and it's a big week for enterprise names just in general because this is Wednesday, Thursday as Salesforce. So it might actually be kind of interesting to take a look at NOW, ServiceNow, because that can trade with those with Workday and Salesforce, and that's been hit real hard after its report. So might be due for a move. Williams Sonoma, so retailer, about 18 points is what's expected, but those are monthly options. You're paying for a lot of time value. They crushed it last quarter. Stock had a huge pop. It's held in great since. I just think the biggest question is whether or not the bar is too high because it feels like everybody's expecting another good quarter. Plus, like a lot of the retail names crushed it this quarter. So it's hard to tell whether it's going to be more of like same sell the news that we saw this week or can it actually trade higher. So a lot of question marks and like option pricing is not that low where I feel like there's a ton of potential. So I'm on the fence with it. Thursday before the open, Best Buy. So about 7 points is what they're pricing in on this one. We sat in options on this one for a long time, expecting to break out above 120. Didn't really want to go. That to me still seems like it's in play, but risk is definitely higher with earnings, obviously. It got hit pretty hard last quarter. It was on this move here. Um, and I feel like it could be set up just for like a bigger move again this time around. I mean, whether that's on the upside or downside. So I feel like volatility strategies might be the way to approach it. Burlington, so about 22 to 23 points is what they're looking for. TJX traded down. Raw stores was up. It's kind of a toss-up pattern. The stock does have a history of moving, but at like 22, 23 points, it really does have to move quite a bit to pay options. So the risk seems maybe more the downside, but they have been pretty consistent in terms of reporting lately. So it's been a tougher one to like be bearish on. Also Thursday before the open, you have Dollar General, which is pricing in about 10, and then Dollar Tree, which is pricing in about 7. So both dollar reports, both dollar stores reporting the same morning. And I don't know. I haven't really been focused on these. They haven't traded well recently, but maybe that means that they're due. If anything, I might look at something speculative on the bull side that's cheap, but that would only just be speculative, just to see if they woke up. All right. After the close on Thursday, Autodesk, so about 15.5 points is what they're looking for. Good size software name. I haven't traded in a while though. It's been fairly range bound. Earnings have been a little bit less volatile, so I'm not sure I really want to lay out the money on options in this one. Salesforce, so big name, big report. 12 points is what they're pricing in, and I'll be honest, I really don't know what to make of the stock. Hasn't had much life ever since the Work acquisition, the Slack acquisition. But it's always so tempting to play around earnings because you just, or at least I remember what it did back in August on earnings. So I mean, I know things have changed since then. The stock's not the same, the market's not the same, but I mean, this might be something I look at for a speculative bull idea. If like the market acts better, software acts better next week, maybe I'll take a look at something. Box. So about 3 points is what's priced in. Those are monthly options. I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out. There's been activist news on it. It's been underperforming software name for a long time. You do have to pay for monthly options though, so it makes like the earnings trade a little bit tougher because you need a bigger move. But I mean, it does seem like there could possibly be some potential with this type of pattern because there's more interest in it. Stock has opened up a bit, got some activists agitating, so it's a little bit more interesting this time around. Costco, so about 11.5 points is what they're looking for. Big retail report. They give monthly comps and sales, so that removes a lot of the volatility around earnings usually. And the stock has had a really impressive recovery since the March, since like the March low. I mean, just a huge bounce. So I feel like that kind of removes some of the potential too. Just the magnitude of the bounce, plus they do the monthly comps. So I just don't think there's an earnings trade on it. And then Ulta, so another retailer, about 23 points is what they're looking for. Every couple quarters, this has a huge move, but will it be this quarter? That's the question, right? It does seem kind of interesting because it's been consolidating above 300 for a while. Um, I think anything I would do with it would revolve around getting pricing down, or maybe viewed as more speculative, because it hasn't been as consistent. But again, every couple quarters, it tends to have like a real big move. So it's just whether or not it's this quarter, right? But that could be an interesting one to take a look at later in the week. And then lastly, on Friday morning, Big Lots, the pricing about 8.5 points. Those are monthly options. It's actually a little bit better. It's not a name that I trade very often. I feel like you know it it's coming off some good quarters. I mean, Overstock, I feel like might be kind of like a sympathy type idea, and they had a pretty good quarter. But in terms of like retailers reporting, like this isn't like a top of my list like type name. And depending on how the week goes, like I'm not sure if like I'm gonna want to take the risk on a Friday morning on like a name I don't trade very often, that only occasionally moves around earnings. So we'll see how the week goes. Maybe it'll be a game time decision for me. All right. So lots going on for the last week of May. Pretty busy, pretty busy. All right. So if you like this video and you're looking for more information on swing trading with options or trading earnings with options, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options to play. Hope you have a wonderful night. Stay well, and I will talk to you on Monday.